Hey, welcome to Vance Tried It. Today we're going to be making some sweet potato biscuits. Now, a while back I made some sweet potato cornbread and boy did that bring out the haters. People just didn't like the idea of putting sweet potato in cornbread. But look, as we all know, haters just have to hate. So if this brings out the haters, so be it. But let me tell you something. This is one of Paula Deen's favorite type of biscuits. So if Paula Deen likes it, I mean, hate all you want, but I think she knows what she's talking about. Well, anyway, we're going to get going here. What I have here is 1.5 cups of self-rising flour, and I'm going to add to that 2 healthy teaspoons, actually tablespoons of sugar. And I'm going to just run my whisk through here. Now you can sift it if you want to, but I have just found that sifting is a pain in the rear end. I have never found a sifter that I have completely been happy with. So I have just gone to this method of just whisking it together. That's going to do the same thing. Basically, you're just separating out the granules and putting a little air in there. Same thing as sifting is what we're going to do with whisking. And so we're just going to whisk that all together. Just like that. Doesn't take long. We're just going to set that to the side. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to get to the important part, because what I have here is 3/4 cup of mashed sweet potato. I'm going to put these in my stand mixer. And it was really simple to make mashed sweet potatoes. Just get some boiling water, cut up. Obviously peel it first. Peel your sweet potato, cut it up into cubes, put it in your boiling water until it gets soft, drain it, and mash it. It's just that simple. Don't add anything into it for this. And I used 1 large sweet potato, and I had more than enough. I probably had, out of that large sweet potato, probably 1.5 cups to 2 cups of mashed sweet potato, which is fine. I don't mind having the extras because I will just put some brown sugar in that, put some marshmallows on top, put that in the oven, and that'd be a great dessert later on down the road. So I am never afraid to have some extra mashed sweet potato. But that's what I have, is 3/4 cup of mashed sweet potato in there. And I'm going to add to that just 1/2 stick or 1/4 cup of cold butter. Here I am spilling my milk over here, but that's all right. I didn't spill much of it. We're just going to put this in here. We're going to use our stand mixer. We're going to put it on pretty low, and we're going to get this all combined together before we go to our next step. So I'll get back to you when this is all combined up. Okay, so we have that butter and sweet potato mixed together. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to take this beater off. We're going to clean it off so we don't leave any of this goodness out of these biscuits. There we go. And now with our spatula, what we're doing here is we're just finding some of the big pieces of butter and we're just kind of mushing them in together, getting those broken up. We kind of want it to where there's a lot of butter in throughout these biscuits. That's what's going to give it this buttery taste. It's also going to make them more tender and flakier if we have that butter mixed in throughout that stuff. And we're just going to scrape the edges along here. Try to get all that stuff down towards the bottom of our mixing bowl. Just like that. Okay, now we're going to switch attachments. Now we're going to use this bread kneading attachment. And we're going to go ahead and add in our flour and sugar. And we're going to start this off super slow so we don't throw flour all over. Alright, so I got that started mixing, which is what I wanted. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this it's probably a little less than 3 tablespoons of milk now, and I'm going to start adding this in here as we go. Now one thing about making biscuits, and it's really where you kind of have to be careful making it with a stand mixer, and that is if you over mix biscuits, they tend to get a little bit tough. They lose their flakiness. So we don't want to do that. So we want to be really careful that we're not over mixing it, but we're going to get all this together. And I'm just going to slowly start adding this milk in here. It should take all 3 tablespoons, but you really want to watch it. Wait till it gets to a good consistency to where it's just right on the verge between wet and dry. And so we just want that moist dough that's going to be ready to go. So let's get back to it. So it's actually turning out a little bit dry, but that's okay. That's why you have to really kind of measure it as you go and kind of gauge what's going on in here. So it's still a little bit dry, so we're going to add a little bit more milk. And so the milk is always iffy because you just never know how much water content you're going to get in those sweet potatoes. And so since you don't know that, you don't ever really know exactly how much milk you're going to have to add in. So let's get back to it. We'll start adding a little bit more milk until it's just the right consistency. And I think that was pretty much just right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this off right here. We're just going to give it one more mix. We still have some flour up on the edges, and so we're just going to use our spatula. We're going to give it just a little bit of a mix. Just make sure there's no white spots in there, but I don't see any, and so that's kind of just what we're looking for. And so I'm going to get set up, ready to get this dough how we need it. We're going to knead the dough, and then we're going to cut it and put it in our pan. So I'm going to get set up for that, and I'll get right back to you. Okay, so I just put out some parchment paper, put some all-purpose flour on there. I put some coconut oil spray on my pan to go ahead and grease that up. And then I have my oven already heated to 450 degrees. And so we are now going to finish up these biscuits. So we're just going to get this out on our parchment paper here, just like this. And now we're going to knead it. We're going to knead it about 4 or 5 times, okay? So we're just going to take it, you just press it down, flip it over, flip it over. Don't be afraid to get some flour on there. This is going to give you some nice, good layers in your biscuit. It's going to help it to be nice and fluffy. And so now what we're going to do is we're just going to press this down. You can use a rolling pin if you want to, but I like to just press it down with my hands and just get it about, maybe a ½ an inch thick. Just kind of like this. Just kind of eyeball it. Just like that. And now, let me get these gloves off. Now I'm going to take my cutter and I'm just going to start cutting some biscuits. Now, one thing to remember is when you're cutting these biscuits, don't twist your cutter. Now, this is a beveled edge cutter, so it's a little bit easier to remember on that. But you don't want to twist your cutter, even if it's a flat edge, because what's going to happen is you're going to seal the edges of your biscuit, and it's not going to rise like you probably want it to. And you can definitely see where we kind of had some lesser amounts of our flour on there. And that's all right. But it is kind of why you want to make sure you have a goodly amount of flour on the top and on the bottom of these biscuits. And we're just going to redo them here with these leftovers. And these, look, these are never going to be as pretty a biscuit as the first biscuits you did, just because of the way you've been treating them. But you hate to leave just some good biscuit mix sitting on the counter. So I always just try to get all the biscuits I can out of it, even if I know that the ones at the end maybe aren't going to be my premium biscuit. That's all right. Get one more out of here. Just like that. And we will call that good enough, unless we just want to shape a biscuit here. Sure, why not? Let's just shape our last biscuit here. I'm not even sure how this one will hold up. We'll just find out. But just like that, we've got our last biscuit in there. Okay, now we're going to put this in the 450 degree oven for about 15 minutes, but we're going to keep an eye on it. Make sure that they're not burning, everything's cooking evenly, because when you're cooking at such a high temperature, which you want for biscuits, you want a high temperature for biscuits, but also whenever you're cooking biscuits, because it's high temperature, you want to keep checking them just to make sure that your oven is not overly hot. But this one should be fine, but we will keep an eye on it, so we'll get back to you when they're done. Okay, our biscuits are out of the oven. We're going to give them a try here. Let's just grab one out of here. Ooh, doggy, can you see that biscuit? Now, you know what we need on a biscuit. We need some butter. Let's just open this up. Oh yeah, that looks nice and flaky inside. I'll put a little butter on both sides there. Let that melt in. Take a look at that. Oh man. So let's give it a taste. I mean, look, if you want just a little bit of a different twist on a biscuit, this is a way to go. Let me tell you something. It doesn't have an overwhelming sweet potato flavor, but you can just taste that little hint of it in there. I mean, the biscuits are delicious. Biscuits are always good. Butter, no butter, look. If you're going to be making a meal, making a breakfast, making a snack, when it comes to these sweet potato biscuits, I tried it. You should too.